This morning comes from the book of Job, beginning at verse 1 and then picking up in chapter 2. There once was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. That man was blameless and upright, one who feared God and turned away from evil. One day the heavenly beings came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them to present himself before the Lord. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" And Satan answered the Lord, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking up and down on it." The Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one like him on earth, a blameless and upright man who fears God and turns away from evil. He still persists in his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him for no reason." And Satan answered the Lord, "Skin for skin. All that people have they will give to save their lives. But stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well. He is in your power. Only spare his life." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and inflicted loathsome sores on Job from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Job took a potsherd from which to scrape himself and sat among the ashes. Then his wife said to him, "Do you still persist in your integrity? Curse God and die." But he said to her, "You speak as any foolish woman would speak. Shall we receive the good at the hand of God and not receive the bad?" In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. The word of the Lord. Friends, one of the things I enjoy about preparing and delivering sermons is the opportunity to travel. We get to go to some amazing places in this world and far into the future. And sometimes that gets me in trouble. But we always find our way home, don't we? We always know how to get back here. And yet, even as we travel, we learn very quickly, I think, those areas that we're not very comfortable being in. Just like neighborhoods you don't like to drive through. There's areas, lands that I prefer not to go. Such as today, from our Old Testament lesson, we are, or at least invited to come or go to the land of Uz. But not today. No, today I prefer to be in our world, my world, and welcome to it. A world in which you reap what you sow. And that's very important, because this is the beginning of our stewardship season. And we will be asking you to reflect on and to make your commitments to this church, your time and talent commitments, your financial commitments, commitments of your energy. And I want to be able to tell you and assure you that you will get a wonderful return from that investment. For churches are, after all, a mutual organization, right? There's a wonderful phrase from the book of Hebrews referring to churches: let mutual love continue. We come to church, we love and are loved. We forgive and are forgiven. We give and receive, right? It's give and take. And when people feel like, "Oh, I'm not getting anything out of church," I like to be able to tell them, you've got to start by asking yourself, what are you putting into it? What are you investing in this fellowship, in this relationship? All right, that's where you start. If you're not getting anything out, are you putting anything into it? So, I love this time of year. I love to show you and invite you to reflect on these opportunities you have to commit. If you want an idea, just take a look at that celebration banner. It's set up in the fellowship hall, and the tables against the stage have those little sheets that explain what all those symbols mean, all the opportunities you have to serve in fellowship opportunities, in worship, in education, and in outreach, in stewardship in our community. And I'm always excited to be able to put this out to you, to see where your energy is, to ask you what inspires you, what gifts do you have to share, what inspirations and gifts are you willing to share. That's what the church is. That's what that banner represents, where you make your commitments and then you physically, literally connect with each other with those little buttons, and we quite literally become the fabric of the body of Christ. And yet, our lesson today wants to take us to the land of Uz, the land of Job. Just try and tell Job that you reap what you sow in this life. He's not going to buy it, and for good reason. He has done everything the scriptures, the covenant asks of him. And it has stood by and watched his wealth, his family, his health all taken away for no reason. Nothing he has done. Well, whatever else Job has to teach us or to make us think about, there is one that I can hang on to today. And that is the truth that our relationship with God is more than an investment. I mean, you have an investment, it goes sour, it tanks, you sell it. And in the consumer model of the church, so prevalent in today's world, well, you're not getting what you want out of a church. You just move on. You curse God and move on. You just don't, But in the Bible, in story after story, God has refused to do that with us. I mean, as an investment, I think we historically have not had a very good return for God, but that's not what it's about, is it? It's about something deeper. And in Job, we get to see that it is possible for us to not give up on God. To realize that our relationship with God is more than an investment. It's something deeper. Something that even the trials of this life cannot take away. In fact, when all else is gone, it is that hope, it is that love, it is that forgiveness, it is that relationship with our God through Christ that will, in the end, be the only thing left standing. And there's something else we share with Job. And we skipped the larger part of chapter 1. We went from verse 1 to chapter 2. In that intervening phrase, Job loses everything he owns. He loses all his children. Friends, this has been a hard year on our church. We have lost many of our beloved children of God in this church. We've lost them to cancer. We've lost them to accidents. And like Job, there's nothing we can do. We can't change that. People die. It's a harsh reality we all have to come to terms with. But we've been losing our children in other ways. We lose our children, the churches in America, through attrition. Kids are growing up, they're going to school, they're not coming back. And this is something we don't have to stand by and throw up our hands. This is something we can address. This is something we can do something about. We can pool our resources. That's what we do in a church, right? That's what all this represents. We've pooled our resources. We can take the initiative. We can make a difference. I remember when I was growing up, I grew up in a small town in Florida that I used to call, later on, Mayberry RFD of the South. I mean, it was that kind of small community, but I didn't appreciate it. I didn't appreciate the church or the community. I was like most kids, when you grow up, you just want to blow that popsicle joint and get out in the world, right? And it was only later I was fortunate enough to be involved in the camp and conference ministries as a college student, do other things that maybe appreciate first the church and all that it had meant to me, but also my community, my hometown. But must we always wait till that's in hindsight? Isn't it possible to appreciate what you have while you're living it? Can't that be done? Well, I have an idea. It's another program, and if you're interested, you can talk to me. You can get the little symbol and sign up on your banner square. I'd love to get a group together of high school students, adult advisors, and start a video ministry, videotape. I've done this in the past. It's always been hard to coordinate because equipment's so expensive, and analog was so hard to work with. But now equipment costs next to nothing. Everything's digital. You can throw something up on a video web sharing site and share it on social media. I mean, it's a great way to get together as a group to learn the skills and the art of storytelling and to throw things up on social media. We can do all sorts of interesting things for our church and for our community. But there's more. I want to do more. I want to go and have a group that can go to these businesses in our town, right here in West Jeff, in Ashe County. And I want us to be able to interview these owners and these folks that work in our community, in our stores. Because friends, these businesses, these aren't investments. This is not just some financial, investment that someone's simply getting a return on. These businesses represent the dreams, the hopes of these people in this community, in our community. And I want to be able to tell that story. I want those kids to hear that story. I want us to tell that story to West Jeff and to anyone else who'd want to come and hear. Right? That's stewardship. Right? Stewards of the story of the church. That life is more than an economy, that there's a story there that we have to tell, that we have to share. Just like there's a story here that we have to tell. A story that goes beyond economies. A story that goes beyond simple investment. But deals with our relationships, our hopes, our dreams, and our aspirations. And we can tell that story. So I'll ask you once again, what are your gifts? What inspires you? And what gifts and inspirations are you willing to share, to pool together in this community? So that together we can be faithful stewards of this church for our own people, for our community, and for the world. Let all God's people say,